I'm getting ready to put some decals on my detail parts for the 132 scale B17. And I thought I'd take this opportunity to just discuss the tools and the preparation for doing decal work. Decals are the markings that go on the airplane, you know, the stars and bars and data marks, you know, things of that nature, lettering. And in order to do decal work, you need some specific tools. The first tool is pretty obvious. You need a container to put your hot water in so that when you dip the water transfer decals, you know, you have somewhere to dip them. So get yourself a decent sized container. You can use anything. You can get yourself some old leftover containers and use them. Sometimes people like really flat ones because they can lay big long decals in them. So that's up to you, but a container for your hot water. The decals themselves, this 132 scale B17 that I'm building did not have decals with it. Most manufacturers give you a sheet of decals. In the old days they were thick and bulky and hard to work with, but nowadays the manufacturers have gotten wise and are starting to put much better decals in their kits, thinner, that react better with the solvents and so forth. So get yourself some decals. Mine didn't have any, so what I did was I did a search and I came up with some Warbirds decals. These are really, really nice decal sheets that are specific to what you're building. And in this case, this is 132 scale B17 data marks. As you can see, it has the national insignias in it, and it has a lot of the stencil markings. And when I say stencils, if you look what I have here, I have the propellers for the airplane. I've painted them up, and I left them gloss, and there's a reason for that, and I'll tell you that in a minute. But I have to put the markings on the propellers. On World War II U.S. aircraft, a lot of them had the manufacturer marks, like the Hamilton Standard logo on the front of the propeller, and some stenciling or data marks. So I'm going to do that, and in order to do that, I'm going to have to use certain tools. And what I've done is I put the tools out here. You'll need something to cut the decals out, obviously. So I have my X-Acto knife for small decals, and I also have a pair of decal scissors. These are from Tamiya. I love Tamiya's tools. They're really high quality. These are decal scissors. Get yourself a pair of decal scissors and a knife. That's to cut them out. You're also going to need a pair of tweezers. These are decal tweezers from, once again, Tamiya. Love Tamiya's products. Really, really high quality. Use them all the time. So you got your tools to cut the decals out, your tweezers to move them around, and when you put the decals down on the model, you need to use a setting solution to soften the decal so that it adheres to the detail or goes over like the rivets and panel lines and things. I have a couple examples here. I have Mr. Mark Setter from Gunze, which is really good, and I have Tamiya's Mark Fit, which is a softener, and there's others out there. Walthers makes some for model railroading, and there's other manufacturers, but decal setting solution. So when you get ready to do your decals, you need to prep the surface of the airplane or ship or tank or whatever you're building. So we've painted it, it's got color on it. Most military aircraft are flat finish. For your decals to blend into the surface and not show any of the excess carrier film. In other words, if you get a decal and there's some open areas inside of it that have that clear film in it still, you need that to blend in so it doesn't silver or turn grayish going over the flat surface. So what I recommend is, and I'm using Mission Models paints, and I have Mission Models, you see it right here, I have Mission Models clear coat. So what I'm going to do is take that big flat colored airplane and spray it with a couple nice level coats of clear. The reason being that a flat surface is flat because you can't see it, but microscopically it's a granular surface that doesn't reflect light. That's why it's a flat finish. Gloss finishes are glass smooth, so the smooth surface reflects light and it's shiny, so thus it's a gloss surface. The reason you want a gloss surface under your decals, not everybody does this, and I always have. I just think that it's, you know, an integral part so that I can avoid any silvering on the decals. Put a couple flat coats down. When your decal goes down on it, those carrier film areas, the clear areas that aren't really a decal, but they're, you know, the decal's printed on clear film, they blend into that gloss surface, so you won't see them. If you put that on a flat surface, sometimes those areas turn like a silvery gray. It's called silvering. You don't want that. It really looks bad when you're finished. But you put your decals down, you put the softener on them, put a little bit on the model, put the decal down, a little softener on it. Then I take a paper towel, a damp paper towel. I put a little softener on that paper towel, and I just press down on the decals to get the air out from under them and to kind of get them to conform down on the surface. And then you put a little more decal setter on it and let it sit, and you don't touch it because the decal gets soft, it conforms, then dries and smooths out. So I'll show you that practically. We'll get some decals, we'll put them on, and we'll look at the process of doing that. So those are the basic tools: your cutters, your tweezers, your container for water, decal softeners. I always keep an extra old brush here for who knows, you always need a paintbrush, clean paintbrush, and the clear coat. Plus I have my Warbirds decals, and I'm ready to put some decals on the B17. So let's get going and we'll do some decals. Let's take a look at applying a decal to the model. And these techniques apply across the board for all the decals. This is the basic principle. This is how you do it, and you'll do it for all the decals. And it's a pretty simple process once you understand it. So let's get started. I have my materials laid out here, which are obviously the model and the decals. I just took a half a fuselage that I had, an extra, so that I can show you one decal and how I do it. I have Mark Fit, which is Tamiya's decal softening solution. I have Tamiya decal scissors, tweezers. I have my X-Acto knife. Paper towels are essential, and here's my water. So the water itself should be hot. I like hot water. It helps the decal slide off the paper easier. I guess it breaks down the solvent quicker. So hot water. I'm going to use the circular national emblem here and put it on the fuselage. And you can see I prepped the fuselage. I painted it in olive green, and then I took some gloss coat and put a gloss coat where I'm going to put the decal. Normally the whole thing would be glossed. When I get ready to decal, I do the whole thing in gloss. The reason being that for me, to avoid any silvering on my decals where there might be some clear showing through, you want that to blend into the gloss coat. Once you put all your decals on, and also a gloss coat helps when you're weathering. It helps your washes, pin washes, and things like that flow better. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Some people don't like the gloss coat and they cut their decals real close so there's no film. I personally like to gloss coat because it helps with weathering, plus I don't have to trim every piece of clear off the decal sheet. So this is prepped. I glossed where I'm going to put the decal. Once you put the decal on, then you can finish it after they're all dry and all the decals are on. You can spray a gloss or a flat to finish it off. So let's get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tweezers out, get my X-Acto knife. Now, the paper towel is essential when you're putting a decal on, and what I do is I wet the paper towel, just the end of it, squeeze the excess water out so it's just damp. I want a damp paper towel, and you'll see where this comes in a minute or two. So the decal itself, I could use the scissors. Myself, I like to use the X-Acto knife. I like to trim it around. Like I say, it's gloss, so I don't have to be right on top of the decal, but get close to the edge. Go all the way around here. And take your time. X-Acto knives are sharp. You don't want to cut yourself. Almost there. And there we go. So there's my national star, my national insignia for the B17. Keep your decals away from the water. You don't want to ruin your sheet. Always refer to the instructions that come with the decals or the model to note the location. And I always look at whatever panel lines intersect near the decal, and that gives me something to line the decal up on. So I can see the top of the star things here, that the arms match this panel line. So I'm going to look for that on the airplane, which is right about here. And I'm going to put my decal on right there. And look how close it is to the window too. That gives you an idea. So take your decal, put it into the hot water, and let it sit for 30 seconds to a minute. You'll know. Sometimes the edges peel off the decal. You'll know it's ready. And I'll open that up. I have to wait for the decal. And this can take a while. It's a simple process, but it can take time because sometimes airplanes like this one had a lot of stencils and a lot of markings all over the airplane. And the little ones, the gloss coat works really good with like little stencil data and things where there's a like film around it. If you don't put it on a gloss, sometimes when you finish it, you get silvering, which is where the clear turns almost like a gray silvery, and you don't want that. So let's check the decal. Just move it around a little. He's loose here. So what I do, and this is just how I do it. Some other people use some of the sets out there, like micro set, to put the decal down. I like to have my decal have a little bit of leeway to move around so I can position it. So I put water on the model, right where the decal is going to go. I take my finger with some water, put it on there. Then I slide the decal right into place. Since the water's under there, I can move it around. You see, I got it on there. I'm just going to put it into place. Let me refer to my pictures. That looks pretty good. And always remember, when you're doing American national insignia, the stars always point up. You know, you have to have the point of the star facing up. Sometimes people put them like this, and that's incorrect. You want to make sure the point is upward. Alright, so once the decal's in place, the next step is to make sure there's no air under the decal. And I can see bubbles on top of this right now. I don't know if you can see them, but right in the middle I see some air bubbles. So this is really important. This is a critical step in putting on decals. What you want to do is, and this is why we dampened this paper towel, as you can see, it's nice and flat. And I put it in my hand, palm of my hand like this, with my fingers under it. And I like to, your object is to keep the decal in its position, but push out all the air underneath and kind of push the decal down so it's on the surface tight. So I take this paper towel and I roll myself over it. I just take the paper towel and I just press down so the decal doesn't move. And I do it here and there. And you can see, once you start pressing down, you'll start to see the detail underneath showing through on the decal. In other words, it's settling. And just make sure there's no air bubbles. Press it down. And there it is. So, I've laid the decal down. Now, got everything out from under it. This is where the decal softener or solvent comes in. And there's different solvents you can use. This is Tamiya's. The idea behind this is to wet the decal down, and then you don't touch it. You just let it sit because the decal softens itself up, and as it dries it conforms to all the detail underneath, like the rivets and the panel lines and things. So I like to get it around the edges so that it goes underneath the edges. Let me hold the airplane up so you can see what I'm doing. I just coat the decal, and just make sure you go right around the edges. And you don't want to go too far off the decal because sometimes this stuff can stain your paint depending on the paint. But I just coated it down. Now I'm going to leave it. So we'll come back in a few minutes and we'll check out the decal after it's settled down. Okay, let's fast forward to the future. The decal is on, it's dry. I put my softener on and it took it down into all the rivet lines and panel lines. It's hard to see that on the video, I'm sure, but it's there. So the only thing left now is put the rest of the decals on the model and then decide whether it's a gloss or a flat finish to seal the decals on. So this is a military aircraft. It'll get a flat coat, which will flatten this down. I'll run off, do that, and I'll show it to you, and we'll be done. And there it is with the flat coat. I shot flat over it, got rid of any edges, any silvering, no silvering, got rid of any of the clear, put a nice finish on it. So one other tip, if you're doing decals, and let's say you let it dry and there's an air bubble, what you can do is take your X-Acto knife, pop the bubble, put a little bit of the softener on it, and then push it down with the paper towel. You should be fine. Other than that, that's putting on a decal. Use that for all the decals on your aircraft and other models, and came out great.